I'm in Chengdu, China. I'm live. I'm alive. And I hope everyone's having a fantastic one. I got a fire fit on today. I'm looking more Chinese than I've ever looked in my whole ass life, dude. In my gay ass life. You already know what's up. Former Obama speechwriter Sarah Hurwitz laments to Jewish Federation that people are finding content from Al Jazeera and Nick Fuentes on social media and seeing the videos of the carnage in Gaza. This is something that I've brought up quite a bit, but the difference is, for her, it's basically saying the quiet part out loud because, like, you know what my perspective on Israel-Palestine is. You know what my perspective on Gaza is. Let's take a look.
Since October 7th, but really before then, there have been huge shifts in America on how people think about Jews and Israel. And I think that is especially true of young people. So we are now wrestling with a new, I think, generational divide here. And I think that's particularly true in that social media is now our source of media. And this, it used to be that the media you got in America was American media, and it was pretty mainstream. It generally didn't express extreme anti-Israel views. You had to go to a pretty weird bookstore to find global media and fringe media. But today, we have social media, which is a global medium, right? Its algorithms are shaped by billions of people worldwide who don't really love Jews. And so while in the 1990s, a young person probably wasn't going to find Al Jazeera or someone like Nick Fuentes, today those media outlets find them. They find them on their phones. It's also this increasingly post-literate media.
First of all, aside from the fact that she said it's like weird bookstores or whatever, like what she's saying is not wrong. The energy that she's putting to it is obviously negative, but what she's saying is correct. The pro-Israel narrative was dominant in mainstream discourse. However, nowadays, with the democratization of the media, with the invention of social media and information that you can find easily online, especially with the algorithm, yes, no, I don't think Al Jazeera hates Jews, chatters. Of course not. But the point is, what she's saying is true as far as how many new outlets there exists and how much that has factored into discourse shifting on Israel. That part is correct. She's basically saying the correct thing, but has the exact opposite opinion that I do, with one exception. Nick Fuentes is anti-Semitic. As far as her saying, like, nowadays people are getting information, extreme information. Like, when she says extreme information about Israel, she's wrong. It's not extreme information. It's just true. It's just the correct information on Israel. She's obviously upset about it. Yeah, Al Jazeera equals Fuentes, the crazy one. One is a Nazi. The other one's a respected international news outlet. Exactly. But from where she's standing, there is no difference between Al Jazeera and Nick Fuentes. And I assume there would not be a lot of difference between Al Jazeera, Nick Fuentes, and someone like myself either.
So you have TikTok just smashing our young people's brains all day long with video of carnage in Gaza. And this is why so many of us can't have a sane conversation with younger Jews, because anything that we try to say to them, they are hearing it through this wall of carnage. So I want to give data.
Yeah. We're trying to have data-backed conversations. We're trying to have honest conversations with younger Jews, but we can't because all they see is the real carnage that Israel is doing in Gaza. It's like, no, you're just upset that you can't fucking brainwash young Jews anymore because they know the truth about Israel. They see the reality that Israel is committing the carnage. I'm sorry. But the wall of carnage, which is the reality of what Israel is doing, is exactly the reason why people are no longer fucking with Israel, because there's no way to control the flow of information and contextualize that violence, or at least shelter the population from said violence. And that's precisely the reason why, yes, people are not believing bullshit coming out of Israel any longer.
Data and information and facts and arguments, and they are just seeing in their minds carnage, and I sound obscene.
By the way, it's because you are obscene. You are literally trying to do genocide defense. It's so funny. She's like, I come across as obscene when I try to defend my favorite fascist ethno state that's currently committing a genocide. It's really fucked up.
I think, unfortunately, the very smart, bet that we made on Holocaust education to serve as anti-Semitism education, in this new media environment, I think that is beginning to break down a little bit.
This is why I said this is like literally what I talk about a lot. She just has the opposite opinion of me on this issue.
Because, Holocaust education is absolutely essential. But I think it may be confusing some of our young people about anti-Semitism because they learn about big, strong Nazis hurting weak, emaciated Jews. And they think, oh, anti-Semitism is like anti-black racism, right? Powerful white people against powerless black people. So when on TikTok all day long they see powerful Israelis hurting weak, skinny Palestinians, it's not surprising that they think, oh, I know, the lesson of the Holocaust is you fight Israel. You fight the big, powerful people hurting the weak people.
Bro, that's bar for bar what I have talked about, except I think it's good to do Holocaust education and also learn those lessons. She thinks it's bad. That's the difference between never again means never again for everyone versus never again means never again just for Jews. If your attitude is never again means never again just for Jews, what the fuck did you think? Like, no, the Holocaust happened. It was a uniquely evil incident. And it must never happen again, which is why we have to be as violent as we want to be in Israel. And you can't say a damn thing about it. That's the understanding that she has over this. Whereas, as I have explained over and over again, never again means never again for everybody. And of course, like the entire point of the Holocaust and Holocaust education is so that we learn from the evils of the Holocaust, the evils of the Nazi regime. Even the mention of like the weak, emaciated Jew is like, I think, a not so subtle reference to the anti-Semitism that you often hear from Zionists. The anger and resentment that some Zionists feel towards victims of the Holocaust as like weak Jews. The notion that like Zionism means you are a strong Jew, a powerful Jew, a violent one that does not find violence to be repugnant. Of course, I, jokingly referenced this. I said, Holocaust education is too successful. It made the kids anti-Holocaust. Well, Israel is trying to do one because that's basically the fucking perspective here. And what's crazier about this is that like this position is Kahanis. It's like an ultra Zionist position. It's not supposed to be a normal position. It's just fucking crazy. It's crazy to just like openly state that the Holocaust education that we correctly tied to anti-Semitism was a brilliant move, except for when that Holocaust education also moved beyond just anti-Semitism and moved in the direction of teaching Americans about anti-black racism and teaching Westerners about the dynamic between the oppressed and the oppressor. And understandably, many people who weren't fucking brainwashed early on and successfully into having a firm commitment of loyalty to the state of Israel looked at that, learned the right lessons, and fucking realized that never again means never again for all. And then the lesson is that Israel is currently doing a genocide, and that is also unacceptable. This is also crazy because, like, she's supposed to be a progressive. She's a speechwriter for Obama. This is an unimaginably racist fucking statement because Zionism is a racist ideology. It's so crazy that this is a major contradiction in the minds of like otherwise quote unquote progressive people. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Like you're a fucking Obama speechwriter. If you talk this way about the Klan versus black people, people would understand that you are a white supremacist. But when you talk about Israel versus Palestinians, people still have not reached a level of understanding that you are operating on the same exact supremacist, fascist belief system. This is an Obama speechwriter.
We know that it happened because the Germans insisted that the Jews, 1% of the population, were responsible for all their problems, just like people insist that Israel, the size of New Jersey, is responsible for all the world's problems today. But that's not really what you take away from Holocaust education. You take away the images of power, powerless. And you also don't really learn about Islamist anti-Semitism and Soviet anti-Zionism, which is so much of what I'm seeing, especially on campus with young people today.
I don't know why the chatter said give us her full quote, because this literally makes it worse. She then follows it up with all of the anti-Israel sentiment comes from Islamist anti-Semitism and Soviet anti-Zionism, which again, inherently white supremacist construct. Why? Because the Soviets are white. I assume she has like some kind of Eastern European heritage, Ashkenazi Jew, and therefore it's different. The Soviet anti-Zionism, still bad, just different than Islamist anti-Semitism. Like as though Muslims only oppose Israel because of some fucking ancient anti-Semitic tendencies and not because post-1948 Israel has been a incredibly fucking violent entity in the region that was specifically designed as a settler colonial apparatus to destabilize the entire fucking region and kill a shit ton of Palestinians, both Muslims and Christians alike. it all ties back to American foreign policy. Israel played a formative role as a Cold War ally to the United States of America. It's played an incredibly important role throughout numerous different forms of American foreign policy. And as a bulwark against socialism in the region when pan-Arabic nationalism was moving in the direction of offering sympathies and loyalties to the USSR with, anti-imperialist ideology, anti-colonialist ideology, Israel was still the very same destabilizing factor that it plays today. Israel also played a formative role in espionage in the region. It was a, forward operating base, an unsinkable aircraft carrier, yada, yada, yada. All of that importance is the reason why Zionist education was basically allowed on American soil and was as successful as it was on U.S. soil. Because America looked at the situation and was like, no, it's great. It's great. You can have as much pro-Israel sympathies as you'd like. This is a very important ally. And the ways in which Zionist education was paired up with anti-Semitism education was also successful. And that's the reason why anti-Semitism, even if it's being cynically deployed against critics of Israel, or especially when it's deployed against critics of Israel cynically, is seen as the only type of bigotry that is not allowed, right? There's a bipartisan consensus on censorship and deplatforming, cancellations, whatever you want to call it, for critics of Israel. And here's Bari Weiss doing that. Chris Menahan says, well said, Hasan. Did you see that Bari Weiss took aim at you at the Jewish Leadership Conference on Sunday? Bari Weiss told the Jewish Leadership Conference she'll use her position at CBS News to counter voices like Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, Andrew Tate, and Hasan Piker. One of these things is not like the others. Can you tell who's different than the rest of these guys? Think about that. Think about how primarily invested you must be in Israel to look at 4 individuals, popular in very different ways. 3 of them have virtually identical worldviews, or at least are on the same side politically. The other is on the exact opposite side politically. What is the reason why Bari Weiss says these guys are all the same? How fucking schizophrenic do you have to be to look at Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, Andrew Tate, and then add Hasan Piker into that fucking equation? If you look to that mention by Bari Weiss and you go, that's right, this is a dangerous prospect, all of these guys are the same, you are not living in the same universe that we are all living in. As for Weiss, who was named the CBS News after 4 years at the helm of the consistently pro-Israel Free Press, said she hoped to use her new position to counter the voices like the ones at the center of Sunday's discussion. The choice is that it feels like we have sometimes, which is the progressive streamer Hasan Piker and Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes and Andrew Tate, the kind of people who are rising in the podcast charts. Like, this was such a crazy mention that even the article itself had to put bracket quotes next to my fucking name to be like, progressive streamer Hasan Piker and Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes and Andrew Tate, the kind of people who are rising in the podcast charts, those who don't actually represent our values, Weiss said. And I don't think that they represent the values or the worldview of the vast majority of Americans. They had to add in the fucking context to be like, this guy's a little bit different than the rest of the people that they're talking about here. If I was at least remotely invested in being a grifter and did not have a strong moral compass, I would lean into this. These are profoundly popular figures. I would probably have a lot less fucking haters too. Because I would say around 50% at this point of the hatred that I get is from these guys. It's from those guys and their fan bases. And despite the attempts made by the likes of Bari Weiss and whatnot to pair me up with these guys, I still refuse to align with them. Because Israel is so unpopular, what a lot of these guys don't realize is that this kind of lumping people in together only boosts the popularity and legitimacy of all those involved. Because at this point, being against Bari Weiss and being against Israel is the popular position. But these guys do not realize that that is the popular position, or at least the ones that do realize think that there is still a way to bring the conversation back to the way things used to be. So at this stage, you actually have to be a little bit more honest about your coverage. You have to be more honest about the way you talk about these things. You have to make a decision. Do I want to look at the situation with sincerity and recognize that some people are against anti-Semitism, but also anti-Zionist because they're anti-fascist. And some people are against Israel because they are fascists and jealous that Israel gets to do fascism with American dollars. I would say that Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson are on the second side, the latter, rather than the former. I'm against Israel because I'm against fascism. I'm against Israel because I'm against racism. I'm against Israel because Zionism is a fascist ideology. For people like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, They are against Israel because Israel is a Jewish state and they're against Jews. They're against Israel because they're jealous that Israel gets to do this fascism and have a Jewish ethno-state, but Americans can't have a white ethno-state. And they tie that back to the influence and involvement of what Nick Fuentes calls the organized Jewry. They think a lot of this woke stuff comes from Jews because the worldview of the fascists needs to actually be wrapped up in a bow, right? There needs to be a missing puzzle piece there that ties all of this together. Who is the scary, dangerous outgroup puppeteering Western civilization and Western society that's educating the children not to be racist, educating the children against fascism, educating the kids and the youth against how they perceive Nazi Germany and other attempts to have organized fascist movements. They see that as the nefarious, dangerous, parasitic, invasive ideology of Judaism. You know who else saw it like that? The fucking Nazis.